The tournament would be held at the end of the year. There would be a fee of 10 copper coins to participate. Jinchi goggled. The location of the tournament was to be a lecture hall on the palace grounds. His jaw hung open and he couldn't seem to close it. Basin said that is abuse of power if I ever saw it. Maomao said, Go connoisseurs are supposed to make up 1% of the population. If there are 800 people in the capital, that would mean 80 players. How many do you think will participate in this tournament? She made it sound like a riddle. People would not have to buy the book to learn about the tournament. Word would spread among friends. Anyone could pay 10 copper coins. Even a child could afford it if she saved her allowance. It was impossible to say how widely the book was being read, or exactly how many people might be or become interested in Go. The thought of how many people might show up for the tournament was frightening. If they tried to hold the tournament in a marketplace, the venues that could accommodate them would be limited. Most open spaces are used for markets, so getting permission to use one would be difficult. The Merchants' Association keeps its own counsel in these matters. Even bureaucrats find it difficult to influence them. That doesn't mean he should hold it in the palace. It simply can't be done. Maomao pointed a finger at Jinchi as if to emphasize her point. I agree, and I am sure he is not happy about having to do it that way. After all, how many potential participants could actually enter the palace grounds? Very few. No doubt he would have been overjoyed to get a proper tournament venue out in public somewhere. I see, Jinchi said slowly, looking at the pile of paperwork. Indeed. Everyone may try to push everything on you, but you may find that once in a while you want to push back, using the rights of your office. Maomao gave him a significant look. He said, I seem to be veritably surrounded by strong and intelligent women. Maomao replied, nothing of the sort. It's simply that they're the only ones who can get close to you. The remark wasn't self-deprecating. Jinchi and Basin traded a look, both of them clearly feeling outmatched. Jinchi found himself having to take back what he had thought a few minutes earlier. Maomao understood politics very well. Chapter 5 cards if you have a trump card to play, Maomao had said to Jinchi, it's better to use it sooner than later. Prompted by her remark, Jinchi found himself outside Lakan's office. He had sent a messenger the day before to inform the Grand Commandant about his business. To be completely honest, he wasn't sure if the Grand Commandant would be there. He probably wasn't, he thought as he entered. Pardon me, he said. To his surprise, the eccentric strategist was there, lying on a couch and sipping from a gourd. He seemed quite at ease. A secretary placed paperwork on a table, sheet by sheet, and gave Lakan a stamp to press on them. Ah, His Majesty's esteemed younger brother, and how might I help you? Lakan drawled. Jinchi wasn't sure how Lakan had recognized him. Perhaps it was because of the messenger he'd sent. Maomao had told him the strategist was very bad at telling one face from another. If Jinchi behaved the way the strategist did, he was sure Basin would criticize him for it, and he wished Lakan would stop using mooncakes as paperweights. They left little round oil stains on the documents. Basin wasn't there at the moment. Jinchi had a different bodyguard. He'd been pretty sure Basin would never get along with the strategist. He'd also been warned against going to see Lakan completely unprotected. He also had another companion. Her name was Maomao. Lakan looked at each of them before returning his gaze to Jinchi. It was very clear he didn't like what or whom he was seeing. Please be seated. No one wants to talk standing up. Come now, not even any snacks for our guests. He was being completely reasonable. However, the juice he poured for them came from his gourd, the one he had been drinking from until just a moment ago. Didn't he remember getting food poisoning from drinking directly from the container? His aide rushed to get fresh drinks. Mr. Monocle made a show of stroking his unkempt beard. Now, what brings you here today? It sounds like you are planning a most interesting event, but in a less than ideal location. Jinchi pulled out the piece of paper that had been tucked in the pages of the Go book and placed it on the table. Did you get official permission to use one of the palace lecture halls? Oh, that. Lakan looked away. His lower lip stuck out a little, almost like he was pouting. I'm the one in charge. If there were any objections, I might have expected them from old Lo. Surely this is outside the imperial younger brother's purview. It is none of your business, so screw off seemed to be the message. Jinchi's smile never faltered, even as he knew he was dealing with someone who saw people's faces as ghost stones. Against Lacan, he was robbed of the one weapon in his arsenal in which he had complete confidence, but the strategist's aide promptly flushed and looked at the ground. "I wouldn't expect someone as serious and hardworking as yourself to understand," Lacan said. "However, ever since the envoys from the West went home, people have been starved for entertainment." Lacan continued, "Starved. There are more trade goods available than ever before." Everything Jinchi had heard told him that the shops were full of unusual items and the markets were bustling. "Ha ha, that may be so, but a fine meal leaves a diner craving the next great dish. Such memorable happenings have left the people seeking something more. Something even better to amuse the tongue or dazzle the eye. It should be said that exotic goods from foreign lands are of scant use when one has no money to buy them. Taxes have crept up lately, bit by bit. It is a subtle thing, but I gather the rates are growing onerous in the farming villages. And what are these strange new laws that I hear about? Are people now encouraged to eat insects? I do not prefer six-legged dishes myself, but perhaps you do, honored brother of the emperor." Jinchi said nothing. Go is a simple pleasure. It is something one can indulge in with nothing but a few stones. Doesn't it seem like the perfect way to disperse the malaise that hangs over the people? Lacan was hitting him where it hurt. Having tried the malnourished grasshoppers himself, Jinchi would emphatically say they were not good if you asked him. The increase in taxes also served as a protection against grain shortages. This tax increase was the one proposal of his that had passed easily. He wasn't sure what that meant. By this point, Basin would have been all over Lacan. Jinchi had been right to leave him behind. He took a deep breath and, still smiling, said, "I think you are labouring under some kind of misapprehension, Sir Lacan." He let his fingers slide along the leaflet, stopping on the word location. "I have no qualms with the tournament itself. Only with where it is being held. Well, what do you want me to do? Where should I hold it? I am a man of few friends. I do not have the connections to bring the merchants around to my point of view." Jinchi knew that very well. He did think Lacan might have had at least one friend who could help him in this situation, but this wasn't the time. He said, "Let me suggest this venue." He produced a piece of paper on which was written Argent Theatre. This was the same place where the White Lady had displayed her miracles, but it had been closed since her arrest. It had a prime location along a major thoroughfare. This made it the perfect place for a competition like Lacan's. Jinchi had been left to handle the whole matter involving the White Lady, though he didn't fully understand why. He was pleased that the work he had been given in parts was finally proving helpful. The Argent Theatre was the trump card that Maomao had so astutely alerted him to. She had said the place could not remain closed forever. Even if one suspected the theatre owner of being in league with the White Lady, she believed they had been punished quite enough. Now there were civil officials who had been poisoned by the White Lady. The owner was not going to get off simply by claiming he had only given her a place to perform and had known nothing about what her act involved. Basin had been very angry at Maomao's suggestion. His sister responded by saying there was more to politics than simply punishing people. She explained that they should get him to cooperate and do everything he could for them. If they were careful about how they pressured him, he would thank them and ask for more. Isn't that what a wise ruler would do? If there are any problems, Grand Commandant Khan is running the show. There should be plenty of soldiers around to curtail any trouble. Lacan himself was a profound hassle to deal with, but he had an abundance of fine subordinates. There would be people to help on the day. There were plenty of military types to contain any problems that arose. If Maomao had been a man, she would have been Jinchi's aide. He would have trusted her implicitly. She was quick-witted and had studied swordsmanship until she got married. Maomao was different from her brothers. They each leaned too much toward either their minds or their muscles, but Maomao seemed able to do anything. Lacan scowled, yet he looked intrigued by Jinchi's suggestion. "The Argent Theatre, what is that?" he asked. He directed his question not at Jinchi, but at his solicitous bureaucrat. Jinchi had thought the Argent was quite well known. He was surprised Lacan hadn't heard of it. The other man said, "It is a theatre in the north of the capital, near the residential area. It is currently closed, however, after a series of performances there by a miracle worker called the White Lady. The White Lady. Jinshi knew Maomao did not put much effort into remembering things that didn't interest her, but Lacan went above and beyond. Jinshi could hardly believe he did not remember someone who had caused so much commotion. The aide told him it was the place Rikusen went with Master Lahan and Miss Maomao. Ah, that place, the strategist said, leaping off his couch and pounding the table. He was shaking with rage now that he remembered it. Jinshi suspected he had wanted to go there as well. Might I continue? Jinshi asked with mounting annoyance. Lacan looked put out, but he sat down. The Argent would be a perfect location. It has more than enough space. Far better than the lecture hall, which would be accessible only to those permitted to enter the palace. Are you saying you would approve the event there? Yes, it is currently shut down, but I can have it opened again. I came to ask for your opinion, however. Would it not be better to hold an event there ourselves, with someone overseeing things to keep them in check? Everything Jinshi was saying was true, as far as it went. And that was all. He felt a trickle of cold sweat. Lacan might not be able to judge people's expressions, but he had other ways of knowing what was going on. He possessed other gifts that compensated for his inability to distinguish faces. He was exceptionally good at sniffing out lies. Right now, Lacan was staring at Jinshi, as if trying to peel away the layers of his words and his plans. He looked Jinshi in the eye and stroked his chin. And what is your purpose in making this generous suggestion? He asked. Jinshi fought off a desire to swallow hard. He took a single breath to steady himself, the same as always. At last Maomao stepped forward. She placed a pile of paper on the table. We are returning to you matters that should always have been in your hands, Sir Lacan. Naturally, we have also given the other officials back their work as well. I think I see. Lacan looked at the pile with undisguised distaste. It was 3 times as much work as he had been listlessly doing earlier. Maomao had brought as much as she could carry, but there was still more back at Jinshi's office. Jinshi's hard-working streak caused him to try to take care of all the various paperwork he received. However, Basin, his second-in-command, wasn't gifted when it came to desk work. And the go-loving bureaucrat Say was merely on loan from somewhere else, and didn't feel he was in a position to express his opinion on such lofty matters. When Baryu and Maomao arrived, the decision was made to return the work to its original creators. You don't think I will simply pass it back to you, honored imperial younger brother? There is not enough work there to make the effort worthwhile. You could complete it with a snack in one hand, yawning all the while, and you would still be done by this afternoon. Lacan's aide looked openly terrified. Jinshi's words were nothing short of a provocation, but Jinshi saw nothing to gain by holding back at this moment. He was confident that Lacan would do as he asked, even if Jinshi felt a little offended by the request. He needed the Argent Theatre, and he needed the surrounding street closed off for an entire day. Who else can do that for you but me? Jinshi asked. Lacan looked at his assistant. If we change the venue to the theatre, what happens? One expects the number of participants would increase dramatically, sir. We would see far more commoners and children. He thought it was unlikely our plan to hold the proceedings in a single day would be enough. It was unfortunate for him, as he would surely be expected to help, even outside of his normal working hours. He said we would have to consult Master Lahan to be certain, but he believed we would need at least 3 days, including time to prepare the place. Also, we don't know how many more people might show up. We might find ourselves short on go boards. We would have to get more of them or reconsider putting a cap on the number of participants. The aide's fear seemed to be giving way to volubility. No caps. The whole point is for as many people as possible to play Go, Lacan said. This surprised Jinshi. He had always assumed the strategist thought only of himself. Then again, when he had spoken to Lahan before this meeting, the other man had said, "My honored father is acting differently this time. That Go book is his tribute to my dear departed mother." Even the idea of holding a tournament like this was unusual for Lacan, but he had a reason. He had bought out Maomao's mother, who had been a former courtesan, but she died barely a year later. Lacan created his book to commemorate a woman who had been a master Go player. He preserved the records of their games, and this tournament was an extension of that impulse. This was not one of his ordinary flights of fancy. While Jinchi was lost in thought, Lacan's aide had been drawing up a simple schedule. If we offer admission at half price for those who sign up ahead of time, we will be able to measure the level of interest. An admission fee of 5 copper pieces would allow even those with the lowest incomes to participate if they wish. We are also considering prize money for the top performers. Jinchi knew that 1 copper piece could buy a steamed bun. Maomao had told him this once. Now in his element, the aide showed none of his previous hesitancy. This man did not have the obvious quirks that had characterized Lacan's last assistant, Rikusen, but it seemed he wasn't entirely undistinguished either. Lacan folded his arms and regarded the mountain of paperwork. He still looked unhappy about it. Perhaps one more push would help. There is something else, Maomao said, and produced, of all things, a list of names. It appeared to enumerate the medical staff. An event this large brings with it the possibility of unexpected trouble. In addition to security, I think we should have some people who are versed in medicine present. Strictly speaking, the idea was well beyond what a court lady should suggest, but Jinchi wanted to give her a thumbs up and say, nice work. If Jinchi had tried to bring the subject up, it might only have made things worse. Now, Lacan's eyes were sparkling. The list included the names of 2 people he loved most in the world, his daughter and his uncle. If you insist, then I suppose I have no choice, Lacan said. Jinchi could barely contain a grin. He had finally gotten a concession from an opponent who always seemed to favor others. It was just a small step, a rather trivial one, but for Jinchi it felt like a giant leap. He was enjoying this feeling of triumph when Maomao nudged him, giving him a look that said, do not let your guard down yet. If you would be so kind as to write up the details and send them to me, Jinchi said. HRM, Lacan grunted, apparently not pleased with the compromise. He waved his empty gourd at his aide, demanding more. To Jinchi's surprise, the man quickly produced another gourd and gave it to the strategist. Lacan took a mouthful and spat it right back out. Master Lacan, the aide said, what in blazes is this? It's juice, sir, the aide said, checking the gourd's contents with an expression of concern. Well, something is wrong with it. You did not get it from the usual place, did you? Lacan was good and upset now. I am sorry, sir. It appears to be fruit liquor. The aide rushed to get some water. I will show myself out, Jinchi said, eager to leave before he could not keep a straight face anymore. As he left, he saw that Lacan's next visitor was already waiting. Moon Prince, a young civil servant clutching an armload of wood writing strips, bowed his head when Jinchi appeared. Some departments preferred the wooden strips to paper. Those who were especially obsessed with propriety and decorum seemed to love them most of all. Jinchi wondered which office this young man had come from. Let me see those. Lacan got up from his couch and snatched the strips from the official. He turned and made for a large desk in the corner of his office. On the desk was a map with pawns arranged on it. He studied the writing strips, shifting the figures around as he read. Let's do this then. Yes, sir, said the young official, making a note of every movement. Jinchi spared him one last glance as he left the room. The entire court knew Lacan as the eccentric strategist. While the emphasis tended to be on eccentric, one could not forget that he was also a strategist. As he moved those pawns across the map, soldiers marched in their hundreds, their thousands, even their tens of thousands. Lacan was not like Jinchi, who had been given a civil post as befitted the emperor's younger brother, but it was an empty one. Jinchi could only sigh at his own ordinariness. He wondered how an ordinary person like him was going to outwit a genius. Chapter 6 Thunderclap. It was an autumn afternoon, and Maomao and her father were both looking puzzled. Think it might rain today? Her father asked, looking at the sky out the window of the medical office. Cats and dogs, sir, she said, catching herself before she spoke too brusquely to him. There were other members of the medical staff nearby, so she had to be careful. Yao and Inen were not there, though. The medical assistants were becoming more comfortable with their jobs. They were increasingly assigned to different places, wherever work needed to be done. Maomao was sent to help at the medical office where her father worked today. Liu Men held a message in his hands, orders from a specific person. The problem was determining exactly who that person was. He thought he has been working hard. I'm a little surprised, mumbled a young physician nearby, seemingly in spite of himself. Maomao had met him when she was working for Jinchi. She hadn't learned his name yet. He ought to be working, Liu Humen said, but he sounded somewhat less firm than usual. What does Grand Commandant Can want with you, Dr. Can? In short, the freak strategist was trying to foist his work on Maomao's dad. The letter was phrased as a polite request, not an order, but nothing about the contents said if you'd be so kind. I must admit, I'm not confident that I'm the best person for an interrogation, Liu Humen said. He was asked to speak with 3 suspects. Usually this would be the job of a legal official. Why ask a doctor to do it? One would have expected them to be a little more discreet about a matter like this, Maomao said. Yes, one would have expected that, Liu Humen agreed.